This is The Jump Around with Jim Rutledge and Pablo Iglesias, streaming live on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel.
Welcome into The Jump Around on ESPN Madison's YouTube. I am Jim Rutledge alongside Pablo Iglesias. We are in the Everlight Solar Studio. We got a lot to get to today, which starts with Wisconsin. And I guess we should first start, Pablo, with Wisconsin's loss to Michigan State, and then we'll get into their win against Minnesota. But the Badgers against Michigan State, they hung in it for a while. The simple case should be made that Richardson, once he was out of foul trouble, and Carr out of foul trouble, just made the difference there. I think this game was more than just at the Breslin Center in Michigan State having home court advantage. The Badgers didn't look outclassed against Michigan State, but they looked like a team that's just maybe 10, 15% not as good as Michigan State.
Yeah, for me, I don't feel like that this showed me the whole outside of there is one thing. Yeah. I think the lack of physicality down low, Badgers were out-muscled left and right. It's not like the Badgers didn't have bad opportunities or were taking bad shots.
Yeah.
For me, what that game proved is it just shows who Michigan State is. It shows that they're the top defense in the nation. Wisconsin is one of, if not the best offense. Yeah. So you got those two things going back and forth. But it showed that defense definitely was the key victor there. And for me, it's, again, Michigan State just showed that they are a team that forces you to be one-dimensional. This team, this Badger, to quote Mark Tauscher, I don't know exactly what he goes when he ever says multiple, but let's quote Mark Tauscher and say this is a multiple Badger team, but in that Michigan State loss, it just showed that they are a team that's going to force you to be one-dimensional, and the Badgers just had to become this three-point shooting team. Great looks, but nothing was falling, and that's where it ended up hurting them in the long run.
I agree. I mean, the only kind of cardinal flag or whatever you'd throw up about it, pun intended there, with the Badgers would just be, again, now the 2-6 against Big Ten teams that'll likely be in the NCAA tournament. Positive, our guy Nolan Winter, who will be joining the show in about 15 minutes. He had 17 boards in that game, but Stephen Kroll didn't, defensively and offensively, didn't really do what they needed to. The bigs for Michigan State were big for Michigan State in that game. We don't have to dwell on it, but I thought it was worth mentioning that the Badgers, again, are looking like a team that, fourth or fifth, I guess maybe third in the Big Ten. That might be where they end up landing in the regular season. And I think they're playing right in that 3 to 5 range, which puts them as likely a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and a team that I think can make a run of the Sweet 16. So let's get to the game against Minnesota. And we'll get to Klesmit and when will he return and how important is his health. But the Badger game against Minnesota, it was a gritty game. They won. And I would feel better about a gritty game that they won. One, if they shot better, because this is now back-to-back games where 22% from three is that's not it.
No.
I think it was worse against Michigan State, or right around that same number. And
not too far.
The field goal percentage was a little better. Blackwell continues to play well. Tanjay seems to be sliding a little bit, and he could just be regressing to the mean, which his mean is still pretty good. But we might have saw Tanjay when the Badgers were on their hot streak, that Tanjay was hot on fire a little bit, and now he's back to normal Tanjay, which is still a all Big Ten player of the Year candidate, but not quite. He was almost like, on fire walking around the court for a while there. But Blackwell stepped up his game. Stephen Kroll, still very much hot and cold overall, but I love the fact, this is one of those weird glass half full, glass half empty games, Pablo. I love the fact that the Badgers were able to pull out a gritty victory, and I know it's a rival, and I know it's on the road, but Minnesota is 500 on the season. They're 7-12 in conference. This is a team that I would have preferred the Badgers handle at least somewhat on par like they handled Washington. Now, that game was at home, and maybe Washington I think they're a little better than Minnesota, but still, this game, I would have felt a lot better about Bucky going into tournament time if the Badgers had gone out and handled their business instead of getting into basically a brawl. Sometimes, not literally, but
losing teeth.
Yeah, Janecki looked like he was in a brawl. It kind of just was an ugly game. I'm glad they won that ugly game. You need the windows in a tournament. With the asterisk, Minnesota's not a tournament team.
Yeah, you got to come out and it is big that you come out with a road victory. But to your point, they probably should have handled Minnesota a lot way better than they had last night. I'm happy that they came out with the win. I'm happy that things panned out for Bucky. But the beige or the cardinal flag, if we want to stick with this theme, is that I am slightly concerned about John Tonje, and has he regressed a little bit? Is he taking a step back into his game? I really want to see him be a force and drive. That's where I feel like John Tonje, and it's awesome to see John Blackwell take off and do what he's doing. I think it's awesome that once again he's recording another double-double. I think yesterday was a career high in points too, on top of coming off a career game. So this is good that his stock is rising. I don't know if I can say, you know what, maybe it does feel like a little bit actually that John Tonje's stock is descending a little bit. And that's just because the last 3 games that I've seen from the Badgers, I don't think he's taking bad shots. Again, it's not that he's just trying to let it fly randomly from 3. He's getting good looks, and that's a part of his game. But I really want to see him be a force and drive again. I want to see him go to the rim. I want to see him draw fouls because it's, again, the joke of the free throw merchant. I don't think he's a free throw merchant by any means. He's just aggressive. He gets to the rim, and he gets good contact. Hopefully he can finish, but he makes his free throws. I mean, he's been in the single digits the last few games. Yesterday, actually, I'm looking at Michigan State stats. He went 3 of 13 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3, and he only had 4. He was 4 for 4, which is great from the charity stripes. But he only had 4 trips.
He only had 6 yesterday. So, to your point on that, again, Tonje is not my concern as far as what we're going to get out of him. My concern is more of, are we going to get the electric Tonje that we had a little bit earlier in the year? Kamari McGee, I think, had his worst game filling in for Max Klesmit. So if you had asked me before the Minnesota game, are the Badgers going to be missing Max Klesmit? I think they miss him on the court, some leadership side of things. But Kamari McGee's been around for a while. He had 1 bad game. And then when you backfill it, I think Janecki's doing a good job of filling in for the roles that Kamari had. And so, with all due respect to Klesmit, they can get by without him. Obviously, you want him, but I would rather just wait for him to be healthy. I don't think that's going to, if they don't make the Sweet 16, I'm not going to say, because Max Klesmit got hurt. That's not where I am with it. I think he is a good key piece, a leader on this team that you want to have out there and a productive player. But I'm just going to spin it positive. I think Kamari McGee and Jack Janecki have done a good job filling in.
I like what McGee and Janecki have brought. For me, potentially this might be polarizing. I want to know what you think on this one. But I think from a comp standpoint, Max Klesmit brings the attitude that Brad Davison brought onto that floor from a leadership standpoint. He was a guy who was just loud. He was himself. He, whether it was he was the one shooting the threes or he was trying to, the quarterback, because Brad Davison being a former QB in high school, it just feels like that to an extent Max Klesmit can patrol and calm down that offense or, get the guys in rhythm. So, yes, can they get by without this team? Maybe in March. But you definitely want them to be healthy. And from what we're seeing from reports is that this doesn't look like it's a long-term thing. I think you see a little bit of that difference in the swagger, the way that they just kind of carry themselves a little bit, that control versus if things get a little, somebody, is a little haywire here, that's where Max Klesmit, I think, can kind of come in. And sometimes, too, it's if there's a little bit of a jab that needs to be thrown in, Max Klesmit's not afraid to throw in that jab. Absolutely.
And I guess my point was that's all very important. I just think Kamari McGee does almost the same thing as a player and without. But having more guys that do it is always a good thing there. So it's not like the Badgers won't miss Klesmit, and hopefully he'll be back here soon. But I just am a believer in what I guess Kamari McGee and others there. So this is the Jump Around. Jim Rutledge, Pablo Iglesias with you. We have Nolan Winter coming up at 1 o'clock. And I wanted to switch gears a little bit here and get to Badgers football. And shout out to The Athletic here. They had an opportunity to talk with Brady Collins. And before we get to basically the part that I found interesting was some of the weight gains for these players, but you've had an opportunity in your past life working in TV to do some stuff, being in the Badgers weight room and being around Coach Collins, so the strength and conditioning coach. So how about you talk a little bit about what you know about Coach Collins, and then we'll get into this article.
Yeah, when you walk into that weight room, there's phrases all over the place, but Brady Collins, the strength and conditioning coach for Wisconsin, is very much about that attitude. He's about... he's if you go in, I was saying this in our pre-show meeting to the guys after he logged off, was that in the most organic and fun way, the attitude that you see of like a professional wrestler, a guy who's like screaming, high energy, like, think of Ric Flair, like a woo type of energy.
Yeah.
That is what Brady Collins embodies, and I fed off of that. I told him, like, when we had that interview one-on-one, I had the opportunity to do that a couple years ago. I'm like, man, I want to lift. I want to get some deadlifts in. I want to get some bench press in. And you can feel that the guys also gravitate towards that. He's a high energy. He's a very positive guy. He's going to push you. He's lifting weights with the guys, too. He's making sure that these guys are running high energy left and right. And it shows to an extent of like the attitude of what Luke Fickell pushes, that they want to win the fourth quarter. It's because it's an endurance battle. The mission, at least, that Luke Fickell and his program, like what they try to do is try to run guys into the ground from an endurance standpoint, that they want to be at their peak or have something, have good stuff in the tank come the fourth quarter. Now, in terms of how they've looked in the fourth quarter last season, that's a different story. That's not a pretty thing.
Let's get to that, because I think, one, the Badgers have suffered. They've had their almost, I would say, unfair share of injuries just in general. You look at the quarterback and then Braylon Allen. Like, there's obviously there's been different players who, Chez Malusi, been hurt and never been able to really get maybe full potential out of them. And then how deep were they behind that? I think their depth has improved as far as players that fit Luke Fickell's system. But then the other part of it here, Pablo, is that I think this year they recognize that last year the bodies that they had still wore out. Mm-hmm. And maybe they got caught up, and this has been kind of a mantra of mine, that the Badgers maybe got caught up trying to beat USC, UCLA, Oregon, some of those teams, and forgot you got to beat Iowa and Nebraska and Minnesota, which means physical play. And you don't have to have big, beefy guys who can't move around, but I am encouraged from this article, and it's really the stats out of the article that jumped out to me. And this is something that a lot of times people do, like, oh, you look at the roster at the end of last year, and then when spring ball rolls out, you look at the weight gains for some of these players. And in normal life, Pablo, you and I, like, adding weight, I mean, that's not really what we're trying to do, even if you're, I know muscle weighs more than weight, or more than fat, but just in general.
Hey, Matt Hamilton's got me on some creatine out here, too.
So there you go. So you might be trying to max. I am not trying to add. I'm fine with my muscle mass. A little bit of weight would be fine, get more muscle. But in general, this is good news for the Badger football team. The first one that pops to mind is Tanner Koziel, who is the new tight end from Ball State. And he came in weighing 237 pounds at 6'7", which again built like almost even skinny for a power forward. Now Collins says that Koziel weighs 257, and that to me, I think that seems like 20 pounds seems like a lot, but when you have that tall, that's really not a huge amount of weight added. And then for him to be able to be a beast in the Big Ten and get through an entire Big Ten season, those 20 pounds, I think, are very important.
Yeah, and looking at some of the other numbers, too, going down this list from the Athletic article, I'm trying to find it right now. It's, get this, the quarterback Carter Smith is now up 14 pounds. He came on at 179, now he's 193.
Yep.
Going back to this, when I was in that weight room and just
the squats, though, they do reference to Carter Smith, hell of a squatter.
Yeah, Squat Fest, man. Like, all of that. It's the energy, and going back for those who do or may not know too much about Squat Fest for Wisconsin, it's this like big off-season lifting. Like I think they do it in July or like August, like right around before fall camp starts, and it's a bonding moment. It's hey, try to get your PRs and squats and all this, but he did also say it's a bonding experience too. It's about guys, the bigger picture of how to work through adversity together, how to push one another, how to support guys, when they are facing these tough challenges. And it's crazy. It's a club. There's lights all over the place. Guys paint their faces for it. If you watched the video last year too, they all had masks. But it's those small things that Brady tries to bring in. That's why Luke Fickell brought him over from Cincinnati. That's why Brady's like, I got to follow Luke Fickell, because it does come down to that. You want guys to feel good about themselves. You want them to feel good about what they're doing, feel good about their bodies, build up. Yeah. Know that, again, they're going to be feeling really great out there and putting up some big numbers, man. It's like a zoo in there in the best way, like how chaotic, and they're running left and right in there.
Yeah, and another defensive side of the ball is where I'm very excited. Daryl Peterson. Now, Collins, not quite a little bit of a shot, where it's basically told Peterson playing lighter and trying to do the TJ Watt sort of thing on the edge wasn't working for him. So he has Peterson adding, 15 to 20 pounds up to the 260, 265 range, more of an edge setter, which again, in the Big Ten, I think, is incredibly important. And then you have a couple other, not great news about Mason Rieger, who's out 6 to 8 weeks with a titanium rod inserted into his tibia. So that one is something to keep an eye on. I'm now less excited about what sort of impact he can make, but Ben Barton, defensive lineman who did about 50 snaps per game last year. He's up from 308 to like 325. You add in some of the other new defensive linemen. Charles Perkins is up, I believe, near 305. Garner's up near 305. Parker Peterson, a new transfer in from Tulane, up at 315. Ooh. So adding these players and getting some weight on them. The other one would be Corey Walker from Western Michigan, up from 270 to 295. They're going to drop weight throughout the year. It is a hard to keep that weight on, but those 10 pounds gives you're harder to move. And obviously you're adding that in muscle. They're not adding that in fat. So you add 10 pounds of muscle. One, you're physically harder to move, but then also you have that much more strength. So the amount of weight added on the defensive line, again, to me, and just defense in general, very encouraging.
Christian Allegro, too. He was a guy who was it's named on this. But the thing that there's a small piece in here that sticks out to me is Nicholas Clayton, the freshman who came in early, going up from 200 to 222. One thing in this article that's listed is that he's an outside linebacker. He committed as a defensive end. He was an edge rusher, so he's now more of like outside linebacker. So yeah, that's still part of the pass rush. That's still part of the edge. But I think he was more of like a DE at first when he was in high school, and I believe he was. I know our wrestling expert Riley Yauk behind the glass too. Nicholas Clayton was the state champion in wrestling. Is that right, or is that Mason Posa?
I will look that up for you. It's Mason Posa. I know for a fact was a state champion.
Okay, Nicholas Clayton at least kind of felt like he gave off that. He's the Florida kid. I thought he was a wrestler too.
I'll look that up for you. Give me 1 sec.
Okay, but anyway, still aggressive kid. Christian Allegro though too. I know that he was a hot name coming about that, but I know you mentioned this too. We're going back to Carter Smith, the quarterback, I believe, or is this? Yeah. 405 squat?
Yeah.
That's dirty.
Yeah. Well,
that's pretty clean. You think you could do that?
No.
We got our part-timer Jacob in here too shadowing. You think you could do that, yes or no? That's all good. Yes. You just give me a yes or no. No, he can't. He can't do 405. I can't.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to take us too far off this and talk about our combine numbers out here.
Right. The thing of Carter, though, going from, when he got a high school build when you're 179. And I think he's over 6 feet tall. So that 193, again, tells that he's becoming a little bit more of a man's body, which I'm not expecting him to play this year. But if he can make that jump and be physically capable of getting a few plays, or at least being physically capable of playing, I think it's a big jump. The O-line would be the other part of it before we get to the other Badger news. Some other guys added some weight here. You have Kevin Haywood. He's maintaining his 325. Joe Brunner at 315. They talked about Emerson Mandel is now up to 320, having gained 10 pounds. Riley Mahlman up to 318, up 10 pounds from last year. And then Jack Renfro up to 310, up 8 pounds from last year. So now they have this line of everyone over 300 pounds. And again, I think all these guys with their size can carry it. And again, this is not McDonald's or Culver's weight. This is real muscle that they're adding there. So the bulk for the Badgers is real. And I guess, Pablo, what makes me excited about it, it shows that Luke Fickell and Jeff Grimes and the coaching staff are putting their training and their weight training and their coaching philosophies on display. They're saying, no, when we say we're going to be more physical this year, and we say we're going to be bigger defensively and bigger on offense, it matched the recruiting. Defensively, they brought in a lot of new defensive linemen, and now they're adding weight to them. Then offensively, Jeff Grimes comes in, run the football more. We need bigger linemen. Looks like the running backs, they didn't talk about their weight gain there. That's a little dicier on running back. You don't want to put much on them. But still, having more depth at running back, having the quarterbacks being able to carry weight and be able to be physical, that to me tells me that the Badgers are serious about changing their defense as far as maybe the size, maybe not overall philosophy, but just being bigger, and then offensively getting back to a team that really, it's not ground and pound, because you wouldn't call Kansas or Baylor that, or even BYU when Grimes was there, but a team that is run first.
You got to get back to your mojo. I'm looking at the three guys in the backfield. Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree are guys who we know from a recruiting standpoint, they are very electric. They were awesome. I had the privilege of watching Darian Dupree grow up from the same high school as well.
Yeah.
That was fun watching him just do what he did and watch him cook from that young age. And I could see that very well playing over into Wisconsin. But also Cade Giacomelli. I hope he gets more chances to get some reps. He was mentioned in this too.
Yep.
He's gaining some good weight. What I loved when I had begun to cover Wisconsin was that the Braylon Allen's freshman year, he was nowhere close to even being number one on that depth chart because it was Isaac Garendo, Jalen Berger, and Ches Malusi when he came in, and Isaac Garendo calling them the three-headed monster. And in my head, and we even look at pass running back rooms that have been very successful in Wisconsin history. If Wisconsin can get back to that running back room of at least their top guys being the three-headed monster, that is dominant. And that's exactly what you want to do with this offensive line, too. You want to beef up this offensive line. Hopefully that this just all comes together and works out well because you need that beefier offensive line, whereas Phil Longo's O-line, that worked, or that was more of his schematic thing where guys were moving around, but just the bodies were not fitting his scheme. So I'm excited again to see exactly what Jeff Grimes brings into this one. And going back to my point, bring back that three-headed monster element to the backfield. That's what's fun. That's what's Wisconsin football. Just because it's, you're not going super crazy with the pass game or you want to stick to your guns. The run game is still sexy. I don't know how else to put it, man.
Well, I mean,
you break out into the open field. Everybody loves that. Everybody loves it when you got pay dirt right in front of you.
The best teams in the NFL still run the football.
Yeah.
I mean, you even talk about the Packers, but obviously the Eagles. Saquon Barkley. I mean, running the football is still incredibly important, and you need to have it to be a successful football team, especially at Wisconsin. Speaking of Badger football, their season opener moved a day back, basically, to Thursday, and they're taking on Miami, Ohio at Camp Randall Thursday night. What do we think?
Thursday night football? So. I mean, it's cool. It's different. Kind of all I have, honestly.
Okay, so you're not too into it or anything.
I mean, I was already kind of so about the Friday. You know what? Here's my gripe, and here's the bigger thing. This is also probably like with NFL games that are on Netflix on weird days on Christmas. It's just like, why are we doing this? I get like, or even Black Friday week or Thanksgiving week. Why we're having the rivalry games on Fridays and moving this around and all that. I don't know. It just feels strange to me. I don't know if I feel like completely like over the moon about a Thursday night game. Like it just feels weird to me. Friday nights alone already felt strange because in my mind I'm always used to that schedule of Friday night high school, Saturday college, Sunday NFL, and then you get like Monday and Thursday too. But you know what I'm saying? It just throws off the schedule.
You're more of a traditionalist.
I'm a traditional guy. I like it a little bit. When people like to mix it up a little bit, throw pepper in a recipe when it's not supposed to be that spicy, but hey, give it some flavor. But sometimes you just got to stick to the classics too, man. Don't get too cute on me. I didn't think I'd be getting on this type of rant on a Thursday night football college game, but here we are.
Shout out to Dare Gumbawale. He signs a 1-year deal with the Texans. What an amazing story for him, and obviously his sister is a great WNBA player. But Dare continuing a nice long NFL career and perfect spot. He is a special teams guy. He is important for the Texans. He's a leader on that team, and he's positioned himself to have a night. I could see this continuing for a few more years with him, whether it's the Texans or someone else wanting him, while he can keep his athleticism. And it speaks to his leadership, speaks to his locker room presence, and speaks to his ability to do a lot of different things on the football field. One of his, I can't remember if he overlapped at all with James White or not. I know that they are friends, but James White, friend of the show, hired as a assistant running backs coach at Illinois. And while we wait for Nolan Winter to be ready to join the show, and if you are just tuning in, Nolan Winter will join the show at 1 o'clock here, and we'll talk Badger hoops with him. But with James White, I just look at it like this, Pablo, is that this is just the new normal. And I think Badger fans have to stop getting upset that their favorite Badger, former Badger from back in the heyday, and these are the guys that I covered when I was covering the team more, are not with the Badgers. Because this is I don't say the price you pay, but when you bring in Luke Fickell, I think it's Pollyanna to assume that he would be bringing back former Badgers that are not his guys. And he just made a mistake, and I know he's not super tight with Jeff Grimes, but he made a mistake and chased Phil Longo. And that didn't work. I think he's going to try to bring in people, even if the players have Badger ties, that's not going to be number one on his list of the most important things. It's going to be, do we feel like we align? Do we feel like we're on the same page? And that's going to be the likes of him. Kenny Guyton would be an example. Kenny Guyton, he coached a little bit with at Ohio State. He coached a little bit at Ohio State. They've known each other, stayed in contact. So then Kenny Guyton is his guy. You're going to find more guys like that, players who played at Cincinnati or maybe overlapped with him at Ohio State. When they start aging into wanting to be coaches, those are the players that would start coming to Wisconsin to be here because this is Luke Fickell's program. Jim Leonard's not walking through that door. Brett Bielema, Paul Chryst, all those guys aren't walking through that door. So you're not going to bring back former Badgers of the glory days, especially when Brett Bielema, who coached a lot of those Badgers, is coaching somewhere else. They're going to go where they feel comfortable and where they wanted. James White is still a Badger and will always be a Badger, just like Aaron Henry and others on that staff. But right now, they are loyal to Brett Bielema, and Brett Bielema's given them a chance. And I just don't know what you expect. Luke Fickell doesn't know these guys.
At the very least, I think they're owed a call. At the very least, I think they're owed a call.
Why?
Like whether or not they say no, because I think it's the courtesy from that. It just shows at least that you're
What
trying.
if they say yes, and now you have a guy on the staff that you don't really know?
Well, I mean, you're not reaching out to the guy unless you want him.
That's what I'm saying. Like Luke Fickell, not that he doesn't want them, but like Luke Fickell has his own guys and his own circle to fill. It's just not a Badger circle.
I feel like that there's a give and take with it. I don't think this is a black and white. It's a gray area. It depends on the relationships. It depends on what they've done. It depends on if they still gel well with the guy. It's awesome that Chris Orr's in the league right now. It's awesome that he's going to be getting to coach at that next level. But why not bring a guy like who used to be even under a different coach? As long as they gel with the guys and they are willing to, I guess in a way, maybe not cling on too much to past hurt relationships. You know what? Hey, I was under this coach and I don't want to hurt this person's feeling. You know what? It is what it is. I haven't been in that specific situation, but I would at least like to believe that it's at least worth a call. If you feel like that this person is somebody that can identify with your staff, why not? They have the ties. They know a little bit about the culture. You don't want to completely revamp and totally change. I know that the air raid and I can't remember exactly what the phrasing when Luke Fickell, it was like, I don't know, the arrival or something.
I thought it was the dairy raid.
Was it the arrival, Riley? Do you remember what this was called?
Oh, the spring game, the launch.
The launch. That's what it was.
That was a big deal. I had a lot of magnets on my fridge from the launch.
You still have some?
I could find them. I can dig them up.
All right, bring them back. Maybe we can give that away as a prize at some point. But anyway, you don't want to over-invest in a rebrand, a complete overhaul on a rebrand. I still think that you need to stick to some of your roots. I guess that's what I go back to. Luke
Fickell has his own roots. He's not. He came from Ohio State and Cincinnati. He was the first coach to bring a non-Power 5 school to the college football playoffs. I understand like the frustration from fans, but I guess at this point I'm just not pulsed on anymore because I'm just not surprised because he's got his own guys. So he has his own people that he wants to reward through time. And I get what you're saying, but we're really asking for like vibes. And you hire Luke Fickell and you make this move, you kind of just have to like not live with the consequences, but just understand it took me time to get here. But like Chris Orr or Jay Valai or Soup Campbell or James White or Melvin Gore, they're not walking through this door as coaches.
But you have to open the door for them. You have to invite them. You have to give them a reason to come back.
He's got his own guys. Like that. That's just. I'm not saying
that's my approach. At least that's where I'm coming from. Is at least give the idea of extending the invite versus. I don't think Luke Fickell is necessarily this type of guy where he's like it's my way or the highway-esque type of thing. Yeah. And I'm sure he's got his Rolodex, if that's an outdated term or not, but he's got guys that he could call. Yeah. He's got guys that he could hit up that are not Badger ties. But at the same point too, like, you know what? You got to also think about it as well on the other side. Maybe that's just my point is invite the Badgers too. You know what? They know a little bit about that. If they're open to it, just because, it's not all about bringing in new ideas left and right. You know what? Bring in some guys who might know a little bit about this culture. That's my thing. Keep the door open for both ends.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just not surprised because it's actually uncommon what you're saying. Because I guarantee people in Illinois are like, well, why can't we bring back Kevin Hardy? I'm sure there's people in Illinois who are like, why didn't you bring back Mendenhall? I mean, I don't know who's available, but I'm just saying, I'm just naming former Illini. But every school does this. Like it's ours, and we always feel it's the most important. Every coach, this is just par for the course. All right, we're gonna get to Nolan Winter in a minute here. He had a career high or a season high with 17 rebounds against Michigan State. We're excited to talk to him about the last couple of weeks as the Badgers continue their march towards March and March Madness here, and looks like they're going to be a 3 seed. But I'll tell you what, I think it was 2 weekends ago now, I purchased a couch over at Steinhoffel, so I'm excited about that. It should be arriving here soon. We had to custom order one little piece, so that's holding up a little bit. But
sectional style? What are we talking here?
It's got to have 2 chase lounges, one on the right and the left, and in the middle there's like a regular couch, a couple seats in the middle for the couch. We bought a big ottoman. We put our feet up on. And you know what? It was one of those things like we just want to buy a couch that's going to be comfortable for us to sit on instead of worrying about, and it looks really good, but like worrying about, when people come over, where are they going to sit? It's like, you know what? The favorite seat on our last couch was the Chase Lounge. So like, we have room. Let's just do a Chase Lounge on each end and then do the regular seating in the middle.
Come do some interior design for me, man. I'm trying to get a new couch, too. It's like, I got a decent one, but I'm like, you want to change things up a little bit. Some spring cleaning. Get some fresh looks in there. So, hey, you know what? You know where to find me, man. Right? We got to figure something out.
Yes, and you also, Steinhoffels has interior designers. But your home is more than a place. It's a reflection of you. Make it uniquely yours during Steinhoffel's Make It Your Own event. From bold statement pieces to timeless classics, find your perfect fit for your style. Personalized colors, fabrics to make every piece your own. Save up to $800 and with Steinhoffel's 18-month financing, making your room yours just got more affordable. The Make It Your Own event, only at Steinhoffel's and steinhoffels.com. Nolan Winter, next.
Your home is more than a place. It's a reflection of you. Make it uniquely yours during Steinhoffel's Make It Your Own event. From bold statement pieces to timeless classics, find your perfect fit for your style. Personalize colors and fabrics to make every piece your own. Save up to $800, and with Steinhoffel's 18-month financing, making your room yours just got more affordable. The Make It Your Own event, only at Steinhoffel's and steinhoffels.com.
That gives me chills, man.
That gives me chills. Pablo Iglesias, Jim Rutledge with you. We're in the Everlight Solar Studio. That was Let's Go Badger chants at the barn for the Minnesota Golden Gophers as the Badgers win 74-67. And Nolan, we'll start with the congratulations on the win. And what was the vibe like? What was the feeling like when you started hearing Let's Go Badger chants at the barn while you're a Minnesota kid and a Badger and pulling off the rivalry victory?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me once again. It was a crazy feeling. Obviously, as a team, we love all that support on the road, especially in the Big Ten. It's tough to get a win on the road. We know that. So going into the barn, we saw a sea of red kind of file in before the game, and we were loving it. So throughout the whole game, we were just trying to get them involved a little bit. And at the end of the game, when that Let's Go Badger chant kind of broke out, we were loving it, and we were just trying to feed into it a little bit. But, no, it was awesome, and it was a really cool experience for sure. We're glad we could get the win.
Nolan, I know you also had some local ties to this game. I noticed that Lakeville North there. It was a funny situation. I believe, paint the picture for us, too, a little bit, but it looked like that they had a game originally scheduled yesterday, but that got canceled, so the backup was to come see you guys. How did that all play out for Lakeville North to come watch you play?
Yeah, usually it's like a tradition for our high school to come watch the Badgers play the Gophers. So they did have a section game that was scheduled, but we got a huge snowstorm in Minnesota yesterday that they had canceled it, so they said that they're going to try to come up and make it to the game, and that's what happened. So, yeah, they brought the whole program up there, all the coaches, so it was good for me and my fellow old teammate at Lakeville North, Jack Robinson, to see all of our coaches and good friends.
How is your teammate Jack Janicki?
You need a dentist?
Yeah.
You need some work done?
He said he's already been to the dentist. He's already got it fixed up. So I talked to him this morning. He said he's just numbed up right now, but he said visually it looks all good. I saw a picture, so he looks good. He's ready to go.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Let's talk a little bit about Jack too, and especially with Max being down. I mean, he and Kamari. We were talking about this, Jim and I, a little earlier. Of the roles that Kamari and Jack have been filling while Max has been out for a little bit. Hopefully Max comes back very soon because I know the dimension he adds for you guys. But talk specifically about Jack and how he's just stepped up and what you've seen through practice, moments that we don't really get to see and why it's translating to the court.
Yeah, I mean, obviously coming out, I used to actually play with Jack when in AAU from we were in like 5th grade to 8th grade, so I kind of knew that he had a little bit of talent back then. But no, he obviously had a lot of offers coming out of college, and he chose to come here as a walk-on. And man, he stuck to it through all the ups and downs. He's been a blast to watch, just kind of evolve and develop in this program, and throughout this past summer especially. I think we all saw a huge jump in just the way he played, the way he could score the ball, just kind of his leadership. And yeah, throughout practice, we saw all these big jumps. And as a defender, he's one of the most scrappy guys we have on the team, and not afraid to get his nose in there and lose a couple teeth for us to get a win. So, no, it's been awesome to be able to play with him, and he's been a piece that really has been helping us throughout this season.
Is he one of the scrappiest guys, or is he the scrappiest guy now after that moment yesterday? What would you say?
It's been neck and neck, but losing a tooth, that's pretty scrappy to me. So he may have the upper hand, but no, we got a lot of dudes on the team that are willing to do that. He was just the one that kind of caught the short end of the stick there. But no, he's glad we could get the win.
What's your power ranking of the scrappiest guys, Wisconsin Badgers? What do we say, like top 5? Do we go?
Let's just top 3.
How about top 3? Top 3. Can we get like power ranking music or? Go ahead. Just give us top 3.
Okay. Well, Janicki would be in there for sure.
There we go.
I would say Parker Gilmore would have to be in there, and then I'd say Klesmith scrappy, Kamari scrappy.
So a tie for first?
Well, third.
No,
I think.
Third.
Yeah.
My bad. My bad.
Good. So Janicki, Gilly, and then either Kamari or Klez.
Thank you to Riley Young too for queuing up that music.
Well, speaking of Max, obviously Kamari and Jack done a nice job filling in, but it'll whenever he can return, it'll probably be nice to have another gritty guy have that presence. We always joke that I think the Badgers mixing it in with Tanjay and Klesmith, some older guys 23 or pushing 24, some of them, that maturity out there helps too, I'm sure.
For sure. Yeah, we're missing him right now, but every day he's looking a little bit better, so we're hoping to have him sooner than later. But he's just one of the dudes that even when he's out, he's still having the presence, like he's there. He's yelling at us from the bench. He's trying to coach as best as he can. So it's great to be able to still have him on the bench, just feeling his presence on the bench. But yeah, we're missing him, and we can't wait for him to get back.
How antsy is he feeling right now too? I mean, I'm sure if he got the green light right now, or even if he was like probably 60%, he'd be out there. I'm sure, right?
For sure. I know Class. He's itching to get back out there. So I know whenever the doctor gives him even like a little yellow and maybe green in his light, he's ready to go out there and he's going to give it his all. He loves the state of Wisconsin, so he can't wait to go out and compete.
Talking with Nolan Winter, and Nolan, obviously Michigan State game didn't end the way you guys wanted to. I guess not in a bad way. I was shocked to see that you had 17 boards. You were getting after it there. Obviously, nice season 9 rebounds there for you, but also at the same time, that looked like one of the more physical games on the outside looking in that I've seen you guys play this year. It really felt like one, and maybe the after effects were hanging out in the Minnesota game, just getting beat up. But you hear it sometimes in football, you play certain teams and you feel it for a little bit afterwards. Was that Michigan State game as physical as it looked on TV?
Yeah, that was probably one of our most physical games. And going into it, we knew that it was going to be, being a Tom Izzo coach team. We knew it was going to be a dogfight and just a war. So we knew that we had to try to own the rebounding department the best that we could. And credit to them that they worked their butts off and they weren't afraid to put their bodies on the line. So, no, it was a war. But at the end of the day, we didn't get the job done and moved on to Minnesota. I'm glad we could get that win.
Nolan, how do these, this recent stretch, especially, Michigan State, you guys pull out a gutsy win on the road at Minnesota. What is this stretch? How does this stretch prepare you guys for Big Ten tournament and March ahead?
For sure. I mean, it prepares us in all sorts of ways, from being away from our home, being away from our fans, and just kind of having to go through all all the challenges that throws at us with the fans and the away crowds and just the tenacity. You know, Minnesota's a team that's never going to back down no matter who the opponent is. We've seen their resume. So obviously that was a great win for us, and we were glad that we could go in there and get the win. And then playing a Michigan State team who is, you know, obviously one of the better in the country right now. Just having that experience under our belt, knowing, you know, what's gonna kind of come at us in March. That's a great experience for us. And although we lost, we got a lot to learn from that. And we're excited to get ready for this tournament time. Obviously, we got Penn State on Saturday, and we're not going to overlook that. But, you know, once we get to tournament, I think we're going to be well prepared with all the challenges that we've had this year.
I think you guys are. Big Ten, I think, does set you guys up for success in the tournament. Penn State, last home game of the year, senior night, which is always just feels a little different as it goes along, just because for a player to have a full career at any college now seems rare. But Stephen Kral, Carter Gilmore, Max Klesmit, just to name a few, Kamari McGee, and then Tanjay, who's obviously a transfer in. But it is a kind of an opportunity to honor whether it's the long or short-term commitments those players have made to the Badgers, and it's got to be one as a younger player. You want to make sure that you guys are playing your best game, that last game at the Kohl Center this year.
For sure. We know how special senior night is, especially to our seniors, so we're going to go out there, give it our all, and hope that we can get all the seniors in there and see all of them and get some good minutes. But no, especially for, you know, the people that stuck it out here through Wisconsin, through all the ups and downs, and those people especially, we want to put on a show for them and make sure that they have the best night they can.
Who's a senior in particular in this group, Nolan, that you feel like gave you the biggest lesson that you could learn from this year? If it's a speech somewhere in the locker room or a moment in practice, who's one senior that you think you could pinpoint in terms of a great learning and growing opportunity?
Obviously, Stephen Kral, being a big man and coming in last year, he taught me a lot of just physicality and how the Big Ten's going to be. Going against him in practices in the summer and the fall, just as a freshman, it showed me a lot, and he taught me a lot through that. He'd kick my butt some days, and then after he'd kind of explain to me like how he did what he did, and just little snippets that I can take from that. So obviously he had a big hand in my development and all that kind of stuff. And then Max Klesmit, him especially, just as a leader and what he does on and off the court for me. I wouldn't be where I am today, I don't think, without those two guys especially. Along with all the other seniors, they've all had a hand in my career here. But thus far, I'd say Klesmit and Stephen Kral have kind of took me under their wings and led me to the right direction of being a Badger.
As the regular season kind of wraps up here, how are you feeling about physically? Like, it's kind of a long run here. Now it gets a little different, the schedule does, because then you get a little break here, then you got the Big Ten tournament, then you get another break, and hopefully you guys will have a couple weekends in March. But how's everything? Are you feeling run down? I mean, sometimes guys drop weight. Like, how's the team doing? How are you doing physically, getting ready for a kind of a change up in the schedule after this Penn State game?
Yeah, I think our coaches do a good job with giving us, like, not overworking us, but working us the right amount to know that we still got a game to get ready for. So obviously, I think every team in the Big Ten especially is kind of beat up right now and just kind of drained a little bit. But credit to our coaching staff, they get us ready to go for every game, and they take care of our bodies, knowing that to not overwork it, especially this time of year with it being early March and we got big tournaments ahead of us. We're gonna just kind of try to keep our legs fresh and ready and get our bodies right. And if we're ever hurt, we got all the trainers that we need in the world to go get right. So no, it's a credit to the coaching staff and our strength coach and everything for keeping us fresh and ready to go for the games. But like I said, I think every team in the Big Ten's kind of beat up a little bit right now, so it's good.
Nolan, just from an overall perspective, this time of year for basketball fans, for basketball players, how exciting is this time of the year with March?
Man, it's the best. Like, this is what you work for all year for. So we can't wait to get going in March, and especially March Madness. And the Big Ten tournament, we made a run last year, so we're hoping to do that again. But no, we can't wait. This is what you work all summer for, all fall for. So we're looking forward to it for sure.
I do actually have one more before we let you go. You mentioned that run that you guys made in the Big Ten championship to the Big Ten championship game. When we had Sharif Chambliss on here a few weeks ago, he said that you and John learned a lot from those moments of being young guys that got to be in those games. What do you feel like you learned the most through last year's experience of playing in both the Big Ten championship game and also having a March Madness appearance?
Yeah, for me, I just say like I learned what being a team was. I mean, obviously last year we had a skid where we lost a lot, and it kind of led up to the Big Ten tournament. And going into that, we really united and had each other's backs, knowing like, you know what, let's go play some basketball, let's have fun, let's play with joy. And yeah, I think as it went on, we just learned to love each other more and more. And as we won each game, we were one step closer, and we knew that, and we had each other's backs. And it was just a really cool feeling. It just felt like a true family in there in the locker room and on the court. Yeah, I learned a ton with it being the team aspects, or myself guarding Zach Edey in the Big Ten tournament. Like, I learned what it takes to become a good big in the league. So, yeah, I think John would attest to that too, that we all learned a lot from on and off the court what it takes to be a winner.
One last thing, you talked about kind of physically resting. I'm sure there's got to go mental rest here as the season goes on. So what do you stream? What do you do to kind of when you're chilling out? What do you do to kind of reset the brain in between classes and the games and kind of help calm yourself down?
I've been trying to watch more movies lately, and I've been asking teammates for all sorts of recommendations. So I love like movies with a good plot twist or something like that. So I'm into like all these like Christopher Nolan movies right now. But yeah, I'll be watching movies, play some video games maybe with the team, just kind of relax, hang out with some friends, just take my mind off of things a little bit.
If I'm not wrong, I believe it was with the team that went to back-to-back Final Fours. It was Super Mario Kart was their big game that they all played together. But that was actually I think on the Super Nintendo. But now I'm guessing everyone plays it on the Switch.
Probably, or the Wii. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. We do actually play that on road games. We'll have a group of us go play that in the hotel. So that's still sticking around.
It's still a Badger tradition.
Who's the big gamer? I know that there's a lot of guys that are gamers on this team. Who's the gamer on this team?
Either Max Klesmit or John Blackwell, I'd say. Those two are kind of the big ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Noel, we'll get back to your relaxing time as you get ready for the home closing game of the season against Penn State. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you guys for having me. Good to talk to you.
Thanks,
too.
Nolan.
That's Nolan Winter. He joins us every Thursday at 1 o'clock, and we're excited. I believe we're going to have two guests next week. Once that's fully confirmed, we'll release it. But
what a tease.
We will definitely have Nolan Winter next week and maybe another legendary Badger joining the show as well as we head into tournament time there, Pablo. But it is good to hear that this team is trying to maintain spirits. And I think one thing that could give you a little bit of solace as Badger fans when I was kind of talking it through with Nolan there was that Michigan State, that was a hell of a game. And now Minnesota was too, but like they could just be getting beat up. And maybe they're letting Minnesota, even the Penn State game's close. Like the Badgers might just need a little bit of, and they would get a break here because they'll have they play obviously on. Is that game on Sunday or Saturday? The Penn State game.
The Saturday noon Peacock.
Yes, and then you got Saturday, and then they wouldn't. Now the double bye, we can get into it later, but as I have an article in front of me with Journal Sentinel, they do need help because when a three-way tie, it's not head to head. So the Purdue game matters less.
So the Purdue game does not. Oh, okay, interesting.
Because
so wait, what is it?
I'm reading through it here. I can just read it right now. Wisconsin stands in a three-way tie for the number 3 seed, and indeed the Badgers can still attain that standing. They cannot catch Michigan State or Michigan for the top 2, and UW does not have a strong tiebreaker position as it currently stands. And so, needless to say, Wisconsin's own game against Penn State is a game UW wants to win to help secure a top 4 seed in the tournament and the double bye that comes with it. Also, there is a scenario where Wisconsin can get a top 4 seed even with a loss. And so the biggest game for UW will be Friday when Purdue travels to Illinois. And then if the Boilermakers lose, the door is open for UW to move past Purdue on the records in the standings as long as they win over Penn State. So it is and here's the question. The Badgers defeated Purdue, so why don't they have the tiebreaker already? Wisconsin would have a tiebreaker over Purdue in a head-to-head results if it was just a two-team comparison. But with other teams in the mix, UW loses that advantage.
I really regret asking you to read that whole thing because the picture that comes to mind right now is like from The Hangover when Alan is at the craps table and you just see like all of these numbers and trigonometry, all these shapes and numbers and letters just pop up like in front, like it's like if X happens, Y is this, but then if YZ happens, I'm like no.
Well, here to add to it,
too many bad flashbacks from high school geometry and all that.
If the Badgers lose to Penn State, the 6th seed in the Big Ten tournament is in play because UCLA holds a head-to-head tiebreaker over the Badgers.
I didn't even realize until a couple weeks ago that the bottom 3 don't make it, which makes sense. Also, RIP to the Big Ten, the original Big Ten tournament logo, because now that they've added more schools, it's not that like windmill. You know what I'm talking?
Yes.
I don't know if you saw that. Somebody had to say pour one out for the Big Ten championship logo. So pour one out for that. That was a sad moment.
Yeah. So obviously the Badgers need to beat Penn State regardless, but it does not sound like they have control of their own destiny to have the double bye, which is not the end of the world.
Yeah, it's not. But obviously, especially if you want to make a deep run into March, you want to play one less game. You want to get a little closer to that Big Ten championship versus, obviously it would scare me a little bit if Wisconsin is a one and done if they play Thursday. But yeah, try to get that double bye, play one less game. I mean, I like for them to win Friday. I don't want to look too much into the, whatever happens down the road. I want them to focus on Sunday. But I guess if we do look at the big picture, I want that double bye, win Friday, be in the semifinals. If you make it to Sunday, awesome. If not, you get an extra rest day. You get to recover and recoup and really get to focus in on the Big Ten or on the big tourney from there. So you know what? Let's see what happens with this ride. But I'm not saying it's Big Ten championship or bust for this team by any means. This is, in terms of where this conference is at, they are loaded at the top, and I am okay that Wisconsin is in that top 4, top 5 category right now.
There's a little pressure on the Badgers because if they lose to Penn State,
well, yes,
6th seed in the Big Ten is on the table.
Well, I'm not saying don't lose to Penn State.
I'm just looking at this in general.
Yes.
And also you're probably definitely wiping Milwaukee off the table.
Yeah, that's true.
No matter really, unless they go win the Big Ten tournament, you could be wiping Milwaukee off the table as well. So
you don't want to go to Cleveland?
Go beat Penn State. I'd rather play at Pfizer Forum and go watch the Badgers play at Pfizer
Cleveland.
Forum. This has been the Jump Around on ESPN Madison's YouTube page.